Carl Sagan could not have predicted 2021, but he did see it coming. He wrote the following back in 1995, and we quote, "I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the 30-second sound bites now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance." Roll that around for a while. Those were among his final published words. He died 10 months later. Here we are 25 years later, realizing just what he was trying to tell us back then.
The sonic weapon that took out many of the Cuban bodyguards that were used to defend Maduro. Lots of people saw the details about that weapon and were concerned. Is that something that Americans should be afraid of, something the United States is combating?
Yeah, it's something I don't want to, nobody else has it. We have weapons that nobody knows about. And I say it's probably good not to talk about it, but we have some amazing weapons. That was an amazing attack. Don't forget, that house was in the middle of a fort, an army base.
Ashton Forbes, you know, that super jacked guy.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
And here we go.
Breaking news tonight, a
Get your
Malaysia
martinis
Airlines
ready,
flight
fam.
with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Even as these grainy satellite images released today by the Chinese government.
Why shoot it down, though, if it's not hostile?
Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space.
Why the Americans would?
They leave distance annihilated.
This country is very powerful. Far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world. Not even close.
I remember the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Come home, MH370.
I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
OMG, chat. Oh, she just left. She was just there. Guys, holy crap. Thank you for being here with me on a Friday. Today is a big day. There has been some amazing news. I didn't know what we were going to talk about today. And then the Department of War just comes out and they say, we have directed energy weapons and we're scaling them up. Yep, you heard me correctly. You heard it to be true. OMG, it is happening. We are LFG, just like you guys said. LFG's in the chat. Holy crap, it's happening. So, if you need a recap, it's like one of those TV shows. Previously on Ashton Forbes, we talked about the raid in Venezuela. And we talked about this weird story that was going around that people were being disintegrated when they tried to shoot rockets at the helicopters that raided Caracas. And so we talked about people go, no, this is disinformation. This is misinformation. That's not how science works, as usual, as they always do. Now, fast forward to Davos, and Trump is saying Turns out we did have some weapons that nobody else has. We broke out some secret technology and we blasted those people's eyeballs out with sonic weapons or whatever the hell we used. And all the normies, all the blue-pilled people are having epileptic seizures. How is this true? Because it turned out we were right. One sec. Lulu, what do you got? What are you eating? Sorry. Lulu found something she was chewing on. Okay. So fast forward to today. And maybe it's just best if I show you. By the way, guys, this is a really good follow that you guys need to be tracking here as well. The Department of War CTO Twitter account. Take a look at this. We're just jumping right into our top news, by the way. They saw weapons that nobody's ever heard of, quote unquote, supporting POTUS's mission to maintain a dominant and lethal military. This is where the thumbnail comes from. They have what? I mean, this is just badass. Now, for my disabled, I mean, Kamala Harris voters, followers out there, I love you just as much as I love my normal followers. But you're probably triggered saying, this is propaganda, Ashton. This is propaganda they're using to make President Trump and directed energy weapons and things look cool. Yeah, they're fucking cool as shit. I support this kind of propaganda. This is the cool kind of propaganda. Not the lame two dudes kissing each other, putting makeup on, wearing wigs, and dyeing their hair like purple. That's stupid gay propaganda. Nobody wants that. Doesn't serve any purpose. This serves a purpose. This serves American greatness, American expansionism, and also just getting technology out to the people. So this is what I want to be seeing. Now, there's more. So you click on this Twitter account, one of the greatest Twitter accounts, by the way. And here is the tweet from earlier today. By the way, this is just another interesting one that I saw earlier when I was digging through here. The U.S. Tech Force. What the hell is that? You want to join the U.S. Tech Force? Look, I'm not saying that this group is doing secret covert operations. I'm just saying, could you come up with a better name of a department that is doing secret hackers, clandestine things than the U.S. Tech Force? There it is. If I was an 18-year-old that was like, hey, I kind of want to get in government and I like playing video games and jerking off, this might interest me. Pretty good propaganda. Now, let's look at this one. The Peacetime Science Fair is over. What am I supposed to take from this? It's kind of on the nose. Like, it looks like a beam of energy that's shooting out from a drone. Are you guys seeing? That's what you're seeing too, right? I just want to make sure that I'm not spreading disinformation to people that are out there. But it looks like a beam of energy coming out of a drone. And the normies would say, no, that's magical lights. It's fire that's coming out of it. It's normal. Except for then you've got this. Yes, the Department of War has directed energy weapons. Yes, we are scaling them. Light speed lethality, directed energy dominant. Boom, baby. I'm getting a high from this. Just free. You know what? We're freebasing it. We're freebasing the directed energy weapons today. So this is huge. Now, the reason this is huge is because, like I said, people have been saying that directed energy weapons aren't real. They've been saying that you can't beam energy over a long distance, anything longer than a meter, let's say. It's like, how are you doing that? The efficiency levels just drop off like crazy. That's the conventional perspective. This is why admitting to directed energy weapons is so big, because how many times have we said that all this science, it's like a Pandora's box. You can't just peek inside. The moment you open that door, people start to wonder, how are you doing this? What physics allows this to happen? The whole thing's going to come undone. Everything is. That's why, even though we don't really talk directly about directed energy weapons that much, all of the content that we've talked about is based on it. For example, fusion. How do you do fusion? You need super powerful lasers. That's it. That's how you enable fusion. That's how you make fusion happen. So if we have super powerful lasers, directed energy weapons, we can make that happen. We also talk about teleportation. How are you able to do how are directed energy weapons able to beam energy over a long distance? Most likely, there's probably several ways. There's multiple ways to skin a cat. They're probably abusing quantum mechanics. They're probably abusing the fact that there's an extra dimension. Remember felony physics. What is the science, the physics that is classified for national security? What is that physics? That physics is the extra dimension that we can tap into. There's another energy source that has to be accounted into the thermonuclear weapons calculations. And that's the reason why it's classified, because also understanding that it exists lets people realize that we're capable of making destructive devices far more powerful than what classical physics would allow. Far more powerful. Okay, the other thing I want to bring up on this, several points I want to talk about. One of the other big ones. This is one of those points where we have to hammer the debunkers. Redditors, present the Redditors right now. Present the Redditors and the other people that say that directed energy weapons were not real. Because how many times have I told you? I told you what's going to happen with MH370. And I'm going to keep saying it because I can predict the future due to the aliens downloading the information in my brain. They all say that it's fake, and then the very moment that the government comes out and says that it's real, they all immediately do a 180, and now you can't find anybody that was saying that they were fake. Now they're all going, of course they're real. They've always been real for the information's always been out there. And you go, dude, F you, dude. Shut up. F you, man. That's why we need, present the Redditors. I want to dress them down right now. Present them to me. Because this is exactly what I'm saying. This is what happened with Iraq. You have all these people supporting Iraq, and then the war goes to shit, and now you can't find anybody that ever supported Iraq. Everybody's saying directed energy weapons are fake and that you can't beam energy, you can't do any of this stuff, and it's pseudoscience, and you're conspiracy theorists. Government comes out and says it's real. Now they're all going, but this isn't even new. Everybody's known about this. Like, dude, don't even make me crash out, bro. Come on. Come on. And this is the same thing they're going to do with MH370. They're going to be like, okay, fine. Plasma orbs are real, but that doesn't mean those videos are real. That's what they're going to do. And then after that, it'll be, okay, fine. So it turns out plasma orbs do teleport things, and maybe we did an operation, but everybody already knew that it was something weird that happened anyway. And they'll be like, and it's not like you even came up with any of this information. It was like, didn't Reddit talk about this for like a week of several years ago and then forget about it? Yeah, they deserve all the credit. Even though they did literally nothing and never like even kept the story alive, and they tried to make it go away. It's just can't sometimes with these people. So anyway, it's looking pretty good on Owie's right about everythingsville in the penthouse right now. Looking pretty good right now. And this is what disclosure looks like. Anybody that supports disclosure should be happy that this is happening. This is how the government reveals technology to the peasants like us. It turns out, and I've said this multiple times, and I'll also keep saying this, is that the way that we peons are going to get this technology is when our adversaries already know about it. The United States adversaries already know about the technology. That's when the public can know about it. Because now it's not a threat then that they get it, because they already know. But if the public were to find out some technology that the United States has that China and Russia don't know about, that would give our adversaries a leg up if that were to be revealed. And if you think, damn, Ashton, that's sick that that's the way the world operates. Well, now you understand how they're able to suppress these technologies. There's like this whole sick incentive structure to do so. And the detractors are right. The information has been out there for decades. It turns out I don't really have psychic powers. It turns out all I did was realize the MH370 videos were authentic and then just started researching them like any normal person and be like, oh, if that's real, let me look and see what science is out there that is consistent with that. And you're like, oh, that leads me directly to the Air Force, directly to the Navy, directly to these engineers that are talking about super advanced concepts like aneutronic fusion. I have to be honest, guys, I don't really feel like Sherlock Holmes because it doesn't feel that complicated to figure out. We just needed that first nudge. That first nudge. So I want to play a few clips, especially for some of the new people that are out there. Now, the problem here is my clips are not very well organized here. So what is one of the first people to talk about this concept of directed energy weapons in the public sphere is Tom Bearden. Tom Bearden. We were just talking about Tom Bearden earlier in the week because we were reading Oak Shannon's notes. Oak Shannon was a Department of Energy nuclear physicist and engineer. And he was in some secret meeting with the CIA and Hal Puthoff and I think the DIA in there as well. And in the notes, at the bottom, it says, look into Tom Bearden's work from some meeting from 1985. And we've got videos of Tom Bearden from 1985, and he's talking about the extra dimension. He's talking about extracting energy from the quantum vacuum. He's talking about all of these exact same concepts that now in 2025 are now becoming real. So the first thing we should do, now that we have been told that directed energy weapons are real, they do exist, the government has them, and they're scaling them up, quote unquote. I can't wait for the Death Star, by the way. We should probably look back at the old engineers that were saying this decades ago, that were being called pseudoscientists, and we should probably look at the other claims those engineers were making. Because if they knew about directed energy weapons back then, they must have some idea of how those directed energy weapons are possible. And this is what the normies like Elon Musk, yes, Elon is a normie. Doesn't look like anything to me. I'm from Mars. This is what he struggles with, is he's been taught classic physics, which says this is not possible. This is what those people need to wake up and realize, whoops, we're missing something. What is it? Well, let's just go to Tom Bearden. Here we go. I'm going to play, I don't know, all Tom Bearden's videos are great. So let's do this quantum scalar one. Because, actually, no, this Tesla one should be good. Here we go.
To understand Tesla, you must take seriously, I think, his suggestion that the present electromagnetics model is seriously flawed. Nobody wants to take that seriously. Most of the people who approach Tesla use the conventional electromagnetics, and when they cannot explain what he was talking about, they say, therefore, the man was a kook. Now, suppose for a moment that he really was correct. Suppose there is something wrong with the classical electromagnetics. Of course, you can use the classical model to do the things we do, but it means there are many other things that can be done that we cannot do, because we have excluded that part from our model and from our teaching and from our knowledge and from our instruments. If you add back in the wave that is missing, guess what you get? You get equal and opposite waves in the vacuum. These waves are in fact longitudinal waves. They are more sound-like, and Tesla was right, and all the textbooks in the world are wrong. And by gyro...
Let's go! God, I get so hyped when I hear that. You know what? I got to post that later tonight. Tesla was right All the textbooks in the world are wrong. What a quote. Put it on my gravestone. In fact, etch it in there so that it can never come out. Tesla was right. All the textbooks in the world are wrong. You want to know how directed energy weapons are possible? You just heard it. I randomly hit the perfect video to explain it. The very perfect one. So what does he say right there? Let me break it down for the norms. That's your new nickname, the norms. A, Tesla was right. B, they excluded part of the electromagnetics. What is the part that's been excluded? You can ask literally anybody who understands electromagnetics, and they'll tell you they know. Even the people that don't believe it will tell you they know the part that was excluded. What was excluded in Maxwell's equations was the scalar potential. It was thrown out because it was considered to be insignificant. The scalar potential, if you want to know what it really represents, it represents an extra term that, while small, is real. If we were to take a solenoid, we take a tube, and we have this electromagnetic flux, but it's trapped inside of the tube. It's not on the outside at all. Zero flux is on the outside. There should be no impact to anything traveling on the outside of this tube because all the flux is on the inside. And yet there is. And yet electrons that pass past it, they have a shift. Why? Why? That's called the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect. Why does that exist? Because we're in an extra dimension and there are potentials that are being impacted outside and around this tube. How interesting is that? That's the big secret. And now you realize Tom Bearden wasn't a crazy person. He wasn't a crazy person. He had worked on the black projects. He had seen the truth, and he was able to deduce what that meant from a physics perspective. Now, he didn't write all the papers, and he didn't say, oh, we're going to call this Bearden's theory and blah, blah, blah. No. He just explained it. He didn't try to take all the credit. Just said, here you go. This is the reason. Take it or leave it. And in 1985, that video is from like 1985, probably, or around that time. Nobody in the world was even remotely ready to accept that information. I was a 3-year-old. Now I'm a 43-year-old. Even today, you look at people's reactions to the directed energy weapon news, and a lot of it's disbelief, a lot of jokes about it. Oh, looks like the schizos are going to win one on this one, right? Let's go back to it and learn a little bit more, because there's clearly more that can be learned, especially from Tom Bearden here.
Theory right out of the book: when you longitudinally disturb a gyro that's restrained, it will precess sideways. And all of our instruments measure and detect the electron precession waves. That's what we put on our oscilloscopes and what we read with our instruments. And yes, indeed, gentlemen, we do detect the electron wiggle waves, and they are transverse waves. But a gyro reacts and precesses at right angle to the actual disturbance, which proves that it is a longitudinal wave in the vacuum. If you do not believe that, you must throw away all gyro theory. Tesla was right. Every textbook in the U.S. is wrong. Maxwell simply assumed out of thin air the transverse string wave because that's what everybody was familiar with when he wrote the first equations, and it's never been changed to this day.
So what he's saying is that this extra dimension, it's like when we look at our three-dimensional space that we see, it's all at right angles. Boom, up and down, left and right, and then forward and back, right? Everything's right angles to one another. And he's saying there is another right angle that we're missing, the scalar potential. We're missing this dip into the medium itself. And that has been thrown out, this equal and opposite, into the vacuum. We've thrown that out. So he's saying, and he references Kaluza-Klein a lot. He's saying that Tesla was right. Everything really is waves. He's saying there is this extra medium, And that's why we're seeing these anomalous quantum effects in some cases. And what this opens the door up to is directed energy weapons and teleportation. Because teleportation is directly linked to directed energy weapons. Listen to this video from Tom Bearden.
I won't dwell on this. I will simply state that all that a mass is anyway, a particle of mass, is in fact a trapped scalar resonance. I'm going to give you a quick once-over about scalar resonance and we'll go on. Take a normal resonance system with a wave moving back and forth in a cavity so that it's in phase and coherent. Suppose that there were two waves moving along together, but the second wave, the electric and magnetic field, were 180 out from the first one. That's a scalar resonance system. Your normal instrument won't even see it. We can build special detectors and have that will see it. That's all I'm asking.
So do you want to understand what a scalar wave is then? Because you're saying, well, how do you get this right angle into this extra dimension? Okay, imagine one wave moving this way, transverse wave goes this way. Now imagine it's just an infinite wave that's like this all the time. Okay, how do we get the equal and opposite? You make another wave 180 degrees out of phase. So you take this wave, let's imagine this wave's going like this, 180 degrees is like this. So you got one wave going this way, and now you have a second wave 180 degrees out of phase going this way, and they perfectly overlap, and now there's nothing there. Tom Bearden is saying is that, no, there is something. You took two waves, and you interfered them, but they both still had that initial input. He's saying that now what you've done is you've disturbed the medium. But if you were to try to measure that with our standard electromagnetic equipment, you would find nothing because both waves canceled each other out. But something there did happen. And this is the basis for how something like MH370 can seemingly, from our visual perspective, just disappear. Seemingly disappear because they're creating a gravitational pull, a pull on the medium itself. Like almost like the medium is pulling something out of there and having it reappear somewhere else over here. Like a tunnel, like a wormhole. Keep going.
But you can make a current of that kind of resonance, and you can pipe that current down a wire, or you can add to that resonance in the system, or you can take it away. What did I say? I said you can pump the mass and inertia directly into an object and increase it, or you can pump it out of there. And if you pump all of it out of there, it'll dematerialize on you. And the statements I am making are based in part on experimental evidence in the laboratory.
So he's saying this gets even crazier. He's saying not only do we have this scalar potential, this disruption in the medium, but if we start to engineer it, it's like, okay, make your scalar system that's zero out. Okay, so we've got this basic system that two waves that cancel each other out, and we're making that by an electric current. Scale that up. Scale that up. Keep scaling that up. That nothing gets stronger and stronger and stronger. That little extra term gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Imagine like the ocean, the surface of the ocean of our 0 point energy starts to get more and more uneven. Tom Bearden is saying that we can start to see physical effects from this. He's saying if we do this in an area, we see mass reduction. From our perspective of looking at my iPod, what did they call it again? AirPods. It looks like this is getting lighter from our perspective by pumping this scalar potential into this region or pumping it out. And now you're going, well, wait a minute. Now, whatever we're doing here, starting to sound a little bit like teleportation, especially if you're telling me you can make it disappear. You can pump all the mass and energy out of there and make it disappear. That's almost like you're telling me I just set up a pump between 2 points in space-time, and I pump it out of here, and I make it reappear over here. Keep going, Bearden.
Private
proprietary laboratories. You are no longer confined to the speed of light at all. If you're clever, you can get almost any velocity you want to, whether it's slower than the speed of light or faster. Tesla reported speeds of 50 times the speed of light. I have personally participated in an experiment which kicked out an electromagnetic wave of this type at 8 times the speed of light. And indeed,
I mean, there it is. There it is, guys. 1985, 1987, whenever this is the guy, one of the OGs, talking about directed energy weapons, doing an old school overhead projector presentation on directed energy weapons. And he says firsthand, I have participated in an experiment where we made the speed of light go 8 times the speed limit. We made the speed of light increase 8 times fold. And any classical physicist that would have heard that went to the Learning Center, don't worry, I'll get it up. They would say, no, this is impossible. This is impossible. The speed of light can't go faster, but it can. Relativistically, it can. This is the rub. This is what the warp drive paper by Alcubierre shows. There is a loophole where things can appear to go faster than the speed of light. And we know for sure it exists because we see black holes. So if you went to the Learning Center, then, oh, there it is. You might be in trouble, chat. Because let's be real. Physics has basically become politics now. Asking these science communicators, famous science communicators, what is electricity, is basically the equivalent of asking a Supreme Court justice, what is a woman? What is a woman? They just, brain shuts down. What is electricity? Does not compute, does not compute, does not compute. Or they'll attack you and claim that you're a Nazi that's trying to make a political statement. Like, bro, I'm just asking what electricity is. Just asking what electricity is. Seemed like it was a simple question. You know, you want to be a physicist, feels like you should have an answer to that question. Anyway.
and if here,
hold on. Okay, let's go back to Tom Bearden, guys. Let's let him finish here. Because Tom Bearden's now going to explain. I'll take Tom Bearden, science communicator, over quality learning school science communicator any day of the week. And he's 40 years behind or ahead or however you want to look at it. This was 40 years ago, and I'll still take this education any day of the week.
Experiment which kicked out an electromagnetic wave of this type at 8 times the speed of light. And indeed, when you interfere this wave, you break up the coherence of the substructure. They now no longer sum to 0, and guess what that gives you? It gives you a non-zero vector in the E field and the B field out there. Real energy now appears at a distance out there from 2 transmitters or 2 wave projectors, and yet what's in the middle is not energy flow in the normal sense that we transmit an ordinary electromagnetic wave. It's really an artificial potential.
Chat, this is not even my final fucking form. Oh. I feel it like the soul bomb. I'm like Goku right now, just pulling your energy in. Feed me your energy. I'm going to blast these MFers with a soul bomb in a second. Here is Tom Bearden just straight up explaining how directed energy weapons work. Because you may say, okay, Ashton, fine. Conspiracy theorists, you win. Directed energy weapons are real. Maybe there is something to this scalar potential thing that these Black Project engineers have been screaming about for 40 years. Okay, but how are you going to do anything with it? Scalar potential is just like a magnitude. That's all it means. How are you going to do anything with it? You can't get any energy from the Casimir effect. Okay, Mr. Redditor, sweetie, here's your answer. Tom Bearden just said it right on the screen. He said, you make your beam of nothing, our beam that we canceled out our 2 waves, we turned that into a beam, and now we shoot our nothing beam that can't be detected. We shoot it into the sky. We shoot it into your mom's house. We shoot the beam into your mom's house. The low IQ, or actually maybe the high IQ, the anti-Semites are calling it the goy beam. I still don't even know what that fucking means, but I kind of like it. We're going to shoot the goy beam into your mom's house, and then we shoot a second goy beam. 2 goy beams converge, and they intersect. And when 2 nothing goy beams converge, what happens? That's when the magic happens. That's when that interference causes the nothing to become something. 1 goy beam plus a second goy beam, converge them, cross the streams, and now you just created energy from nowhere. Directed energy weapon. Whoa! Whoa! We did it, chat. We did it. We decoded the mystery of the directed energy weapon. So when people say, how are they doing it? They're doing it because they got an extra dimension and they're abusing the scalar potential that was thrown out on electromagnetism. This is not rocket science. If you want to know the answer, literally just open a history book on what happened to the electromagnetic equations. It's just in there. And even academia will admit it. They'll be like, we just threw the scalar potential out because it just doesn't matter. You're like, well, I'm starting to think that it might matter. I'm starting to think when the United States government is telling me they're scaling up their directed energy weapons, I'm thinking maybe the scalar potential matters. I'm thinking maybe that Tom Bearden guy explaining literally exactly how it works, maybe that was really it. And again, the only reason why the Quality Learning Center will ignore this is because they refuse to believe that there's an extra dimension. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. They're like, no, we refuse. Kaluza Klein's wrong. You're like, why? Because the Sabine Hottenfelder, I think my last recollection, her response on this, which she stopped following me, so she gets that meme. That's what you get, Sabine. I don't really care that much. I'm not one of those people, but you're going to get put in a meme or two. Her response was, it's too complicated to add an extra dimension. We don't need to add the extra dimension. That's not, like, what? That's like the most simple, elegant solution, because we can add an extra dimension and we can just throw out dark matter and dark energy. We don't need that anymore. We can literally throw out all the crap that physics can't explain. We just throw that all out. We can be like, okay, it's extra dimension. Now this can even explain like supernovas, explain like literally everything. Why there's redshift. Turns out that it's just refraction in the medium. Like, boy, oh boy. Okay, Tommy B. Now, listen to this, because here's the next part. Now that we've explained the scalar potential, the extra dimension is what allows a directed energy weapon work. Because what did Tom Bearden just explain? Now, distance is no longer a factor. We take 2 of our goy beams, and we can shoot them at any distance. And wherever those goy beams intersect, boom, energy. So now your problem of beaming the energy over the distance isn't a problem, because we're like skipping the gap. The distance, we're just like invisible over this distance. And then when we get there, now the energy is going to be significant. Okay, here we go.
The closest thing we have to calling it is an electrostatic wave. A more accurate description is it is a direct wave in the curvature of space-time itself. It's a general relativistic wave or a gravitational wave. So if we have 2 projectors, and they might be 2 modified rays.
So there you go. And for the people that want to say, well, he's not talking about gravitational waves. Yes, he is. When you are looking at this idea of the scalar potential, this disturbance in that extra medium, the ether, we're calling it. That's official, by the way. If you have a better name, we don't care. It's going to be called the ether. And The new quantum internet's going to be called the Ethernet. These have been set in stone. Anybody that tries to claim otherwise, just go pull back my old live streams. We called dibs. Sorry, not sorry. Okay. Point being, this ether that we have now allows us to interact with this ether, produce these directed energy weapons. And we can do something even further with this now, because now we can begin to look at relativity. And we can say, wait a minute, what are those things that relativity predicted? And also, does this unify electromagnetism and gravity? Yes, it does. I can't think of a way that you could do this without unifying electromagnetism and gravity. So this all means that the United States military has solved physics. They've unified quantum mechanics and general relativity to be able to do something like this. But then it takes it to the next level. What if we can use this scalar potential, this gravitational ripple? And that's what Tom Bearden just said there. He says, this is really a gravitational ripple that you're doing. So he's saying this extra dimension, changing the energy density of this extra dimension is gravity. It is gravity. That's what we've been saying too, this 0 point energy. And this is what Einstein was explaining, is that when you put the sun or the earth on this fabric of space-time, it causes this curvature that we experience. That represents a certain rate of gravity. So when we're messing with this scalar potential, we're also messing with gravity, manipulating gravity. In fact, that's what gravity manipulation is. Now you see why it should be called gravity manipulation and not anti-gravity, because it's just a force that you are, an effect, not even necessarily its own force, an effect that you are causing to occur, just like when you cause a balloon to lift in the sky. Okay, here we go. Let's let him finish.
Radar antenna, and we intersect them at a distance. We can produce energy at a distance. And that energy arises in the space-time of that intersection zone. It doesn't matter if that's inside a mountain or inside a missile or inside an airplane or inside a human body. If I lower the potential of my projectors below zero, in other words, I make negative potentials, and pretty strong negative, what happens in the intersection zone is not the appearance of energy, but the disappearance of energy. When I bend space-time, if I bend it in one fashion, the local region looks like a source. It looks like it's producing energy. If I bend it the other way, it looks like a sink. It looks like energy is disappearing. This is real. This is general relativity. What really happens is I either put the energy in here and get it out there, or I take it out from there and I get it back here and I better dump it or I'll burn out my projectors. Well, you make a dump and you simply transform it in the other mode and switch it over to the dump. Well, if you were weaponizing that for a big weapon, if you hit this thing explosively with your projectors and you fire two pulses so the pulses meet, an interesting thing occurs. If you fire it in the high potential mode, you get an electromagnetic explosion at a distance. If you fire in the low potential mode, you get a cold explosion at a distance, the sudden withdrawal of energy in the intersection zone.
That is teleportation. How weirdly similar is that to the Polywell fusion device? Tom Bearden is saying, okay, you create this effect. Now we have the basis for manipulating gravity. Now he says, create a huge negative potential. And now he's saying this huge negative potential actually represents space-time curvature. And if that's the case, what that means is this negative potential represents a wormhole. He's saying you create a negative potential over here, and that's going to reappear somewhere else over here. When he refers to energy, remember that mass is energy. When we talk about teleportation, we generally speak in terms of mass energy because we make the assumption that mass and energy are interchangeable due to E equals mc squared. So when Tom Bearden is saying you can either create an endothermic or exothermic event, either an absorption of energy or a release of energy, That is functionally equivalent to making mass disappear in one location and making mass reappear in another. Doesn't have to be just energy. It can also be mass. Much harder because there's a lot more energy in this mass than there is from a density perspective. But we can still make that analogy. So this was the idea of the Polywell fusion device. The Polywell fusion device was a bunch of rings of superconducting magnets set up in a way where there's a negative potential well at the center. And that negative potential well would then cause the positive ions to be attracted towards it from all directions radially. Sounds very similar. So I would argue, now we don't have direct proof of this, but that this is how they began to understand how you could do teleportation, how you could actually move a large object, because then they realized, oh, what we need to do then is encase this plane, this object, in a negative potential well and have a positive potential well over here that's going to be the yin and the yang. So that when this disappears, it actually just reappears over here. And if you want to watch our Weapons of Time. Watch our Weapons of Time live stream, where we thought about the idea of, if we move it from one location to the next, does it have to come out at the exact same time that it disappeared? Or could it be delayed? Ooh, spooky. Okay. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover on the directed energy weapons. I'm just looking to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah. So this is not new technology, admittedly. This also is technology that is from the 70s and the 80s. That is now when they started to build very powerful lasers, when they started to understand this idea of the ether and what it might mean. This technology is not new, but it's still significant. It's still significant because we are getting closer to the technology that they had in 2014. We're still decades behind, but we are getting a little bit closer. We're inching towards it. And like I said, it's significant because if you understand why and how directed energy weapons work, you understand the significance. There's actually a famous article out there by Hotta, H-O-T-T-A. I think it's by him, that speaks to the idea of teleportation and free energy being linked, because of this idea that if I was able to teleport this airplane from one location to the next, there's no way it's going to cost the amount of energy that is in this airplane, in the physical structure of this airplane, of the mass of all this energy. And if I can move something, if I can move an amount of energy for less energy than it has in it, now that's free energy. If this represents 10 units of energy and only costs me 1 unit of energy to move it, and I teleport it to me, now I've just given myself 9 units of free energy just by moving this closer to me. People don't think about that. But a huge part of our electric grid is moving the electricity around through the wires. I think we lose like 20 to 30% of our electricity that way. Think about that. So if the electricity could instantly move from the power plant to your home, imagine the gains. So that's the idea of how teleportation and free energy come hand in hand. Now, some additional thoughts. First, shout out to Iran. Iran is undergoing a revolution, and I think we're about to strike them. I wouldn't be surprised if I go check Twitter right after this and find out that we have been. They're next on the list. And now people are seeing that Ashton Forbes was right. MH370X was right. And there's not going to be any boots on the ground. We don't need boots on the ground. We have sky beams, Jewish space lasers, perchance, that can zap people out of the sky, melt them, make their rockets fizzle out, and what have you. So do you really think some sand people are going to stop us? Some primitive sand people are going to stop us? No. We are going to dominate them. So the people that have been, throwing out slurs about neocons and warmongers and genocidal people or whatever, you picked the wrong horse, brother. You picked the wrong horse. The horse that you wanted to back was the one that had the directed energy weapons that you say control the world, because they're way, way, way more advanced than you're giving them credit for. So we're going to take out Iran. We're going to do whatever we want to Cuba. And if I was Canada right now, I'd be sweating bullets, because we've pretty much got them surrounded. And let's be honest, I think half of Canada would basically welcome it. Welcome being the 52nd state. Okay. We got a little more politics and drama to deal with here. Let's see. Oh, here we go. I'm only going to talk about Candace Owens like one more time, and this is going to be that one time. Chat, Candace Owens blocked me, finally, when I told her that she should probably talk to a lawyer, because it turned out that she has been under a contract with TPUSA that has a non-disparagement clause in that contract up until the beginning of December. If you're going, wait, what? Hasn't she been like saying that they killed Charlie Kirk and all this other stuff since like September? Yes. This woman is extremely stupid. This isn't even about deep state or cover up. This is just about understanding the basics of contractual law. Like I have signed many contracts in my life, worked at many different jobs. And in fact, the funniest part about this is even for the last 2 years, you'll have noticed I have never, ever once on a single live stream, on a single podcast, ever discussed my job. Never discussed even where I work. Not once. The reason for that is that there is a media policy that if I were to discuss my job, I would be fired without permission. Simple as that. So in response to that, I simply never discuss it under any circumstances. And I understand that I would be fired for that. Most people understand that. So for Candace Owens to be completely, blatantly ignoring the fact that she has one of these, and they last for like a year after your contract is over. But this means two things. One, that she was getting paid by TPUSA potentially until last month. The people she was slandering, she was being paid by them. So she is slandering the people that are paying her. And this, I mean, they were sending her multiple letters since this, because it lasts for a year afterwards. Sending her multiple. So I don't understand how she thinks this is going to go well for her. The only way that ends, she's going to get sued, especially because their lawyers have already been sending letters, already saying that they're defaming her and that the charges are accruing. She's already got a lawsuit against the Macrons. This is going to end in her losing. And for the people that were all in on Candace, I really hope you learn a valuable lesson. I really, really do. And the lesson should be that when people are telling you that you're wrong, it's not always because they're deep state or they're shills or they got the 7K or they got the call. Sometimes you're just wrong. Sometimes everything isn't just a big conspiracy. Sometimes it's not the Egyptian planes and the time travelers and the bee cults. Sometimes it's just a psycho leftist. Sometimes. Not all the time, just sometimes, guys. So, in that vein, here's the last thing I want to play about Candace. If you somehow are still trying to come at me about this, still trying to say that, make up some bullshit about Candace Owens being a smart investigator, somehow being, people are saying she deserves a Pulitzer Prize. Just get out. Get out if you think she deserves a Pulitzer Prize. This is Candace Owens working on her architectures.
But really, it was about the architecture. I want you to understand. sitting there across from Alex Clark, like, Catholic, no, he just liked the architecture. And I no longer accept him and Erica. And he liked the smells and the bells. He loved the architecture, but there was no more substance for him. It'd be like, yeah, no, like he loved the architecture of things, but beyond that, nothing was happening. I think this may have been about more than the architecture. The architecture, the architecture of things, architecture and the architecture. But really, it was about the architecture. I want you to understand.
Holy shit. How is that not disqualifying? How is that not disqualifying? There's a whole Twitter account full of things like that. She doesn't understand basic English words. She's married to an English lord, by the way. I've been to her house. It's got to be like a multi-million-dollar home. It's huge. Shout out to her. I mean, great. But so you think that the Charlie Kirk conspiracy is going to get blown open by a woman who thinks that UTC is Utah time, not universal time code. She thinks that architecture is a word. I don't even know what the fuck she's even thinking there. She's just combined architecture and textures together. The architectures. We got a lot of architectures going on here. And it's not like she just said it like one time. She says it like 5 different occasions. She clearly has no clue how the words is even mentioned. So holy crap. Absolutely unbelievable. And these are the people coming at me about you believe in plasma orbs. Yes, I believe in science. I believe in science. I believe in evidence. I believe in facts. I believe in reality. And I'm sorry that you're not there with me. I really am. Okay. My architectures, bro. We was kings in the architectures. Jesus. Yo, ask me a question about my architectures. Man, Hooked on Phonics worked for Candace, chat. Hooked on Phonics worked for Candace. only my fellow half boomers will understand that one. Okay. 2 last things for tonight. 2 last things. It's gonna be a shorter stream tonight. Number 1. Now that we clowned on Candace, my God. Ask me about my architectures. David Kirkley responded. Let me pull this up. Like 3 times. I think we impressed him, chat. Wait, where is he? Why isn't he showing up on my thing? D. Kirkley. David Kirkley. Oh, there he is. There he is. D. Kirkley. Okay. I don't know why Twitter search sucks so much. Like, you can't search by people's actual like names that they've given themselves. It only searches by their handle. Okay, here we go. So David Kirkley, if you don't know, I've got a little bit of a man crush. No Diddy, chat. No Diddy. Little bit of a man crush due to his immense knowledge about fusion. David Kirkley is the CEO of Helion Fusion. He kind of missed the boat. They didn't get bought out by DJT, so I invested in DJT. But I'll also invest in Helion. I mean, they're cool. I like them. But I learned so much from David Kirkley. So I stalk his replies from time to time, in a fun, not weird, psycho way. And so I asked him some question. Number 1, are you producing anomalous energy in your fusion reactor? I imagine it would be obvious in a directed energy conversion setup. Whoa. That's a pretty straightforward question. Now, why am I asking that? If you are a longtime follower, you already know the answer. Ground state of the hydrogen atom. I'm asking David Kirkley this because if we're right, there is this extra dimension, then fusion has got to be tapping into the extra dimension energy. Got to be tapping into it. Now, how much extra energy is going to come out? Not sure. Probably depends. But there's going to be anomalous excess energy, just like we saw with cold fusion. So my question to him was, hey, are you seeing anomalous excess energy? And he responded. And at first I thought, oh, what's this? This is like a link to the schedule that they have for some presentation he did last year. But then I saw he gave me a second response. It should be. I gave a talk on this a bit ago. But in fusion, when you get close to ignition, you start to see extra fusion production, non-thermal ion temperature distributions. That means that these temperature distributions don't obey the Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. So you can have pockets of ions that are highly energetic, that are ready to fuse together. So what he's saying here is that you get this condition where more fusion happens because the conditions for fusion become suddenly more ideal. Suddenly the conditions for fusion become more ideal. Okay. I mean, that's what I would be saying too. If my aneutronic fusion reactor, direct energy conversion reactor, was about to produce over unity without even getting to ignition, I'd be like, yeah, turns out when you get sort of near ignition, the Harry Potter magic starts to happen and you get some more fusion. And that's where the extra energy is coming from. Now you see why the normies are like trying to debunk this. Because that doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're going, okay, but how? But how is that happening? Why is there a non-thermal ion distribution suddenly? Why is there extra fusion happening? You're telling me, great, we did some experimentation, we're seeing that, and we're expecting it. But why? Right? So this is what I think is funny, is that David Kirkley is a very normie guy. He doesn't know about the plasma orbs. Like, he doesn't know about the MH370, so I can just tell immediately. He's not a guy that's trying to be deceptive about it. So he's saying this is a normal thing that we're taking into account. And we're taking this into account in how we build our reactors. And to me, this is the answer for how you can have excess energy, how you can get COP greater than 1, coefficient of more out than in, without hitting ignition. Because when you hit ignition, now your sun is self-perpetuating. Now, of course, you can get excess energy. The whole point is that your sun is self-perpetuating now. But before you get to that, it's kind of hard to explain how you can be getting over unity out. And this is why people have been poo-pooing helium and TAE with their aneutronic fusion approach, the direct energy approach. Because they've been saying the physics isn't really adding up here for them. And of course, it will never add up if you look at it from a classical perspective. You can't think outside the box. If you can't ask why the hydrogen atom is more stable than what we would expect. Did he respond to this? He didn't respond. Okay. And I think some of the other replies were interesting. Let me see. What else? He responded to 2 of my questions. Let's go back to the original. And so then I asked another one. How do you think the electron stays stable around the hydrogen atom for so long? Ooh, interesting. Yo, when Candace can pronounce architecture, I will apologize. I want to see Candace pronounce architecture 3 times in a row without stuttering. When Candace can pronounce architecture 3 times in a row without stuttering, then I'll apologize to her chat. Then I'll apologize. Okay, sorry. I just had to. So what am I asking here? Here I'm asking about Hal Puthoff, ground state of the hydrogen atom. I'm asking, why is the electron stable for so long? Because if the electron is stable because there's an extra energy source, then that would mean fusion is going to probably tap into that extra energy source. And David Kirkley loved the question. You know why David Kirkley loved this question? He loved the question because quantum mechanics doesn't have a good answer for this. Quantum mechanics basically just hand waves this away. Don't worry about it. The same way where when you ask Neil deGrasse Tyson, you say, hey, tell me about how gravity works again. So big objects pull on little objects, right? You say, yeah. So why hasn't Jupiter pulled the Earth out of our solar system? It's been billions of years, right? It's been billions of years, and yet there's this huge, massive, almost star-sized planet on the outside of us and it hasn't pulled us out of our orbit. And they'll go, it just doesn't, because it, like, and Neil deGrasse Tyson has literally said this. He'll say it just cancels out. What cancels out? What do you mean? What is counteracting Jupiter pulling on us? Nothing. They can't explain it. They have no answer for it. So let me go back to this. That's the same thing with the ground state of the hydrogen atom. And if Hal Puthoff's right, and I am betting that he is, then this means we can tap into that. We can squeeze that electron orbital, and then pull energy out. And when we're doing all this crap with plasma and electromagnetism, that's probably happening naturally. That's happening naturally as we're getting this energy out. And this would explain why Pons and Fleischmann were seeing excess energy, and why any of these fusion, deuterium or hydrogen fusion reactions are going to get more energy out than what the chemistry shows, because they're missing an extra factor. So David Kirkley says, super interesting question. We try and do break that. Our systems use RF electric fields to heat electrons so they are too energetic to stay in their stable state and become plasmas. Then we can heat just the ions to thermonuclear temperatures where fusion can happen. Wow. So he doesn't really answer the question. He kind of oddly either dodges it or misrepresents it. I can't really tell. But what he's saying is we're going to use this small energy input to create a plasma, just like our plasma torch on our hypersonics. We're going to create this plasma. We're going to make our electrons break off of their orbits. These electrons are going to become free, and now we've got this plasma. And then we heat just these ions. Heat these ions up so that they will fuse together. So not quite the same as Pollywell's concept, because Pollywell was saying, we're going to make these ions fuse because we're going to create this negative potential well in the middle, and all the positive ions will just come towards it. In this idea, we're saying, okay, energize the electrons, pull them away from their ions, and then just heat the ions up, which he doesn't go into detail on that. My guess is the neutral beam injectors are doing some of that, but I don't know. Okay. And then here, check this out. Check this out, chat. Charge Cluster says, 1984 paper by George H. Miley proved that nuclear elastic scattering reduces fusion ignition requirements by over 50% and creates non-Maxwellian ion populations that enhance fusion reactivity. That's exactly what David Kirkley was saying. Exactly. He's saying you get a non-Maxwellian distribution of your ions. They don't obey this temperature distribution. And now you've got all these ions that are super energetic that are ready to fuse together. This is a George Miley paper basically saying, this is the Charge Cluster basically comes in and calls out David Kirkley and is like, dude, this is what George Miley was saying in 1984. George Miley is one of our Black Project engineers that we've been talking about that worked with Paul Siz, that is on like the dense plasma focus paper. Look at David Kirkley's response. Totally. George is a pioneer. We think we see effects like this in the National Ignition Facility and FRC's pulsed fusion plasmas. Bro. Get ready for the Ashton was rights. Get ready for the Ashton was rights, chat. This is where I was just going, what? What did David Kirkley just say? He's very familiar with that. What about Pollywell in the idea of the negative potential? How come they achieve high beta just like FRC? Are FRCs using this concept in some way? Woo, baby. Pollywell and pulse versions are super interesting. Easy to get some fusion for low cost. I've not seen how to get those from electrostatic low density concepts to low cost electricity yet. I've always been interested if there's some innovation that gets you there without wrecking your electrodes with fusion particles. Remember, what did we learn from Pollywell? You have to use a virtual anode and virtual cathode because any material will melt under the strain and temperatures of your fusion reaction. You use a high beta concept so that you don't need super powerful magnetic fields so that your reactor doesn't rip apart. Chat, we are leveling up. We're almost achieving the power levels that a David Kirkley has. Our power levels are over 9,000 at this point when it comes to understanding fusion reactions. We're hearing it from the GOAT and we're understanding. Maybe some way to channel those jets into electrical output, question mark? Well, would you look at that, chat? Will you look at that, chat? I wonder if there might be some way to channel those jets into some sort of output that could be used for power. I wonder if that could be a thing that you could do. We did a polywell as a very low power fusion demo once. They're almost so easy to do fusion. You've got to be careful with the nuclear safety to shield those fusion products. Wow. I say they do aneutronic to prevent the radiation, and they use superconductors and proprietary methods to prevent the plasma from interacting with the device. The jets become power by using them as propulsion. Paul Sizz worked with Bussard to incorporate the fusion concept into hypersonic scramjets. Paul Sizz also worked with George Miley on this. Boom, mic drop. Boom, I'm out. I'm out, bitches. Ooh, I don't think he'll respond to that one. I don't think he'll respond to that one. This reminds me of the Lockheed guy that was trolling me in the chat. When I was posting about this yesterday in the Lockheed Martin Coherent Matter, he goes, "This isn't real. This is misinformation and disinformation." And I say, do you want this smoke? I'm going to quote Freerun right now. Just so you know, I'm strong. Just so you know, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. You want to come on a live stream and you want to tell me how Lockheed Martin doesn't have these technologies? You best come prepared. Because here's the reality. There's a lot of middle managers who push papers around and sign things that have no fucking clue, that have worked at Lockheed, that have no clue the types of technologies that they've got going on. And they never will know. Just because you were some middle manager pushing papers around doesn't mean that you know the secret sauce that's happening. So if you are one of these people that doesn't even know what electricity is, but you think you know the proprietary technologies that Lockheed has, I dare you, literally dare you to come on my live stream and try to say that to my face. Dare you. I would beg for it. Beg for it. Okay, now, one more thing I want to broach here. I should wait. Oh, yeah, we got one more thing to get into this. Now, this was also found, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest finds. This would have been the topic of the live stream tonight had not the directed energy weapon thing not happened. So the reason why I was talking about cold fusion was intentional. This is a DARPA contract that was just issued. What does this say? Mechanisms for amplification of fusion reaction rates in solids. Okay. January 20th, 2026. That is like just a few days ago. And the weird part about this is that this is literally cold fusion. Not like kind of like cold fusion, literally cold fusion, as in the exact same configuration. So if I just scroll down some of these so you can kind of see the configuration, what they're talking about here, you'll see right away when we go to, here we go. The deuterium fusion, energy, and palladium. This is what Pons and Fleischmann did. They loaded heavy water into palladium metal rods. And the idea was the hydrogen molecules get stuck between the rod, like in the metal lattice, the hydrogen. Imagine the water getting stuck in the lattice, and then you pass a current through it, cause it to vibrate, and this has anomalously high fusion rates. So I'll just say that one more time because it's so simple. All they do, heavy water in a metal lattice, gets stuck in the lattice structure, like stuck in a, being stuck in a line in a busy concert, and then they just run a current through it. The current causes like a vibration, and now that lattice structure fusion happens. And what this is saying is that, okay, we're testing this because we are seeing anomalous fusion. They're saying new theory and data on fusion reaction rates in solids. We predicted this cross-section over here on the left. The cross-section is how often fusion happens. But when we look at the experiment, we're seeing fusion rates that are much higher. Therefore, we're seeing this amplification of fusion rates. And so then here are the factors. Because this is where the cold fusion fiasco, you can tell they didn't take it seriously because they didn't even look at what are the factors. There are factors that are going to determine it. One, the materials. What materials are you using is going to depend. What does your lattice structure look like? Does the hydrogen fit in there? The loading, how you load the hydrogen into the metal. If the hydrogen is not in the metal, it's not going to work. So loading it is going to be necessary. And then the triggers. So when you excite the lattice, excite this new hydrogen doped palladium that you've created, are you pulsing that current? What's the frequency? How much current are you flowing through there? So you have all these different factors. And this is why how anti-science was it of them to just say, nope, cold fusion is debunked. Even though you have 60 recreations showing anomalous energy, it's all fake. Because they didn't even look at these different factors, like what could have been causing it. So we probably should test for all of these different things before we just say that it's not real. And here's just a visualization of it, which I love because I'm a visual learner. Because it's really all about the lattice structure, like a crystal. And this is what you imagine a crystal looks like. You have these nodes. And you're saying our hydrogen is fitting between our nodes in our lattice structure of our palladium. So you can imagine you've got this palladium structure. Now the hydrogen squeezes in there and it can fit. And we fit that hydrogen in there and we vibrate a little bit. And then here's an example. And you can see again, here's PD, palladium and deuterium. There it is, palladium, deuterium. This is just exactly what Pons and Fleischmann were doing. Let's see. And then here's the final for it. Plus, I'm going to steal this too, by the way. Hold on. Let me just steal this. That right there. You're looking at a YouTube thumbnail. That's an Ashton Forbes future YouTube thumbnail right there. We're stealing. I'm always looking for good thumbnails. So, not only is directed energy weapons real, cold fusion is real too. And there's actually a connection. The number one thing that causes fusion to happen is quantum tunneling. When your ions get close enough together, suddenly they fuse together. There's a quantum tunneling type effect. So it may be that if we can beam energy at a distance, if we can use these scalar Gauss beams, maybe these same beams can be used, or the same physics, same concepts can be used to enhance the fusion reactions. Maybe we can use this concept to enhance the fusion reactions. This is why I think that it's not just about flying saucers. It's not anti-gravity, it's gravity control. This is why fusion is also covered up, because the ways where you can get fusion to happen efficiently are by using gravitational manipulation, using the same physics concepts, the scalar potential, that has been thrown out, that we threw in the trash. Okay. That was a link to that. Do I want to play this? Yeah, let's play one more video, and then we're going to do the last thing. Actually, I'm going to speak on the last thing because it's a drama thing, and I don't like to end on drama. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is the Y files. So you probably saw there was a little beef between me and Gino. I have absolutely nothing against Gino, and I'm not angry. But what I want to address is my opinion and what's going on with all this is that I have been under the assumption and still am that, you know, Gino and AJ and the Y Files crew is afraid to touch the MH370 topic. And I know this to be true because I was there in Contact in the Desert when, let's just say, somebody I know and I was hanging out with spoke directly to Gino and asked him. And his response was that 9/11 and MH370 were the two things that they don't want to talk about. Now, they have and can have their own reasons, and I'm not judging them for whatever reasons they are. But my belief is the reality of those underlying reasons isn't about not wanting to harm the families. The reason is they are afraid of the blowback. They're afraid that if they do a Y Files episode about MH370 and they talk about the MH370 videos, that people are going to say that this is fake, that they're bad people, that they should never have talked about this. And if they talk about me, they're going to say, they're going to get blowback of people saying, you should never support this guy. He's a grifter. He's a fraud. How do you not do this? How do you do that? That's what they're afraid of. That's what they're afraid of. And the only reason why there was beef about this is because for whatever reason, Gino is extremely defensive about admitting this. I don't know why he's trying to say that, oh, no, it's because we want to be respectful to the families. Bro, if you want to be respectful to the families, get them the truth. And he says, well, we only want to do stories that we put our own slant on. A, that's bullshit. 99% of the Y Files content is basically rehashing shit that you just found on the internet. You aren't broaching any new territory with basically any of it. And that's not a dig on you. I love the work and I love the production quality. It's just not that you're not doing original investigative work. It doesn't mean it's bad, just not that. So I don't buy that story either, that we're trying to put our own slant on it. And if you wanted to put your own slant on it, then do your own research into the MH370 videos. Why are these videos on the internet? Why don't you find out that it's Gorgon Stair Whammy? And if you do want to do your own thing, then I have given you the way to do it. Here's the reality for the Y Files that I wanted to tell them. They have the ability to become famous forever for very little risk. If they did an episode on MH370, they have how much resources do you think the Y Files has? They've probably made millions of dollars from their YouTube channel. Millions. They could find Edward Lynn. The Y Files could find Edward Lynn. No doubt. They could fly out there and find him. They probably have enough clout that they could get push for a response from the United States government about the videos. They could ask Sierra Nevada Corporation for a statement about the videos. So if the Y Files wanted to do their own thing, do their own research, I've given them how to do that. It doesn't work for me because I'm a random healthcare IT consultant that the military ignores. I have asked them. They ignore me every time I ask for a statement on the videos. Sierra Nevada Corporation ignores me and hangs up on me and then deletes their website. That seems like pretty good content for a channel that does conspiracy theory content. So I don't buy at all that this is about wanting to do their own thing. I don't buy at all that this is about protecting the families or trying to do what's good for the families. I don't buy any of that. Especially because I know that AJ is friends with Joe Rogan. And I was told, maybe I'm wrong, that Gino used to be Joe Rogan's producer. And Joe Rogan's out there saying Ashton Forbes, a really jacked guy, having Freudian slips about me, which I've never seen Joe do. So that's my opinion on it. And my last thing I'm going to say on this, before we take a look at some video and take it easy for tonight, I don't care. I don't want people to talk to me because they feel obligated to do so. And I don't want people to cover the content because they feel obligated to do so. You should do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to do it, just say you don't want to cover it. But when you start trying to make up a whole bunch of excuses that clearly don't have any connection to reality, then you're going to get criticized over it. So my advice would be either just shut up about it and say nothing like everybody else, like all the other phonies and the frauds, that they just refuse to say anything about the videos because they don't want to be proven wrong later on. Either do that and say nothing, or just do something about the thing of the videos. I mean, you're going to get a lot of views no matter what, if you care about that. Oh, sorry. There's one more thing I want to say. It's also obvious from the reactions that I saw from Gino that people have made assumptions about me and who I am that are just flat out wrong. And I can tell that they don't watch my content because they would know that they're just wrong if they did. I have never been doing this for money. I have and still have a normal job. It's a lot of work to do live streams 3 times a week while you do a normal job 8 to 5 every day, 5 days a week. I've never done this for that. And I've always only done this to get the truth out there. I have still never sold anything related to this. Even the t-shirts and stuff were not even mine. I was just somebody that I wanted to help out, that they asked me if they could make shirts for me. That's it. I never wrote a book for this. So this idea that I'm doing this for engagement or for money or for personal, whatever personal reasons, enrichment, these ideas are just not based in reality whatsoever. And I keep imploring people, just research the videos, just talk about the videos. The silence is how they're able to get away with it. The way where you just simply refuse to talk about them for no logical reasons whatsoever. That's how they've been able to cover this stuff up for so long. So that's my message back to Gino. And for the people that I argue with on social media, I have nothing personal against you. I'm happy to sit down with you and chat with you anytime you want. Call on the phone and talk if you want as well. It's not personal. I'm just exactly what I say I am. I'm a guy that is trying desperately to get people to understand something that is so far beyond their current paradigm that they can't really understand it. And to do that, sometimes you act like a dickhead because sometimes you're not even sure if we even deserve it. So that's the truth about me. Take it or leave it. Whew. Okay, last thing here. I want to just take a quick look at this video about waves, because when we think about this, these ideas about everything is a wave, how we want to think of the universe, even the idea of the ether, the idea of scalar waves and canceling out our waves, phase conjugation, they've been out there for a long time. There are videos out there going back to the 60s and 70s talking about these concepts. And this is why I say, just like with the DEWs, the moment all this stuff is admitted to be real, the very people who are the detractors are going to do a 180 and say, oh, it was always out there. But that was our point the whole time. Our point the whole time was that it's hiding in plain sight. The truth is right out there. You just have to go and see it. And meanwhile, everybody's been saying, nope, it's fake. Nope, it's fake. Nope, it's fake. No, it is. It's not fake. Same with the MH370 videos. Everyone's saying it's fake, it's fake, it's fake. And then we're going to find out that it's real. And everyone will go, of course it's real. It always was. That's why we weren't finding the plane in the South Indian Ocean for 12 years. Feels bad, chat. Okay, here we go. I don't even know. This is just about waves, I think. So here we go.
The stimulus. But somehow through a miracle of our physiology, our brain can construct our reality out of these spikes that simply indicate a stimulation of the nervous system. And we see beautiful flowers and animals and the sky and so forth. And as we know, our senses are very inadequate. They're very limited and imperfect. Even bees, for example, can perceive ultraviolet light and
I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit.
perceive reality. For example, if the muscle of the eye is anesthetized, then we do not see anything, because the eye needs to scan all the time in order to see something. So both realities become real.
The reason why I'm bringing this up and showing this was because I want people to realize this is all connected to optics. When we talk about waves, when we talk about what's real, we're talking about what we see, what we experience. Things are only real, or that really brings back the age-old question, is it real if we don't see it, if we're not there to experience it? That's what she's talking about here.
Due to a change occurring between two states of rest. When there is change, there is motion, and when there is no change and a total state of rest, then reality, as far as we are concerned, disappears because we cannot perceive it. So let's look at the overall picture. Here is the atom, and it can be represented as a sine wave of motion and rest, which is analogous to the motion of the pendulum. Now, let us take a hypothetical situation where we are taking a wavelength, let's say a red photon, which has a very large amplitude. The distances between the points of rest are very far apart. And then we take the same, let's say 1 inch, in other words, the same unit of frequencies, and we speed them up so that within the same length, we have many more ups and downs. And let's say it's a violet photon, and then the points of rest get a little closer together, but we get more of them within that span. Then we speed it up even more. Let's say the gamma rays or X-rays, and we see that we get even more spikes and or waves, and they get even closer together. Now, let us imagine a hypothetical situation where the speed has become so fast that it's become infinite. At infinite speed, there will be no more oscillation, and the points of rest will in fact overlap, and you would get a straight line. Now, what kind of state would that be? First of all, we see that it's a paradox because the infinite speed now has become total rest. We could probably call it the state of the absolute. It's the source out of which all the frequencies arise. And it will also have the maximum energy. All energy is in it, but it's all in a potential state. And when it begins to vibrate, then it creates all these different frequencies which begin to interact, as we saw before, creating our reality.
So why is this important? Why did Ashton just make us watch that? Because the basis for Salvatore Pais's concepts is this idea of high frequency and or high accelerated spin. This idea of increasing the frequency, as you can see from that, as the frequency goes up, the energy levels goes up until you hit a plateau, until you hit the peak where now it just looks like a straight line. And all of this is just about entropy. You can break that straight line up, and then its constituent components is potentially all of the other wavelengths that led into it, that created, that caused it to get to that point. So we can speak to this idea of amplification of energy from increasing our frequency. We can see that mechanism in the equations right there. And just like Tom Bearden said, everything is waves. So if we take it a step further with what we learned from Tom Bearden, we learned that we can take a wave and we can make that wave's amplitude go to 0 by overlapping it with a counter wave, a wave that's 180 degrees out of phase. And there's still something there. We can make a scalar beam out of that. We can interfere those scalar beams at a distance to either make energy get sucked out of that region or have energy appear in that region. Can you imagine all of the possibilities that the United States military can do with this? Havana syndrome, any kind of like weapon that's just going to materialize energy onto you, teleportation. A whole lot of stuff suddenly becomes possible that was previously thought to be impossible just because of directed energy weapons being real. And that's our live stream for tonight, guys. Okay, let's go to the super chats. Thank you, everybody in the pill chat. Matt, 1776, gift the can. So Trump is talking about these energy weapons. Chat, let's play it again. Here it is.
The sonic weapon that took out many of the Cuban bodyguards that were used to defend Maduro. Lots of people saw the details about that weapon and were concerned. Is that something that Americans should be afraid of, something the United States is combating?
Yeah, it's something I don't want to, nobody else has it. We have weapons that nobody knows about. And I say it's probably good not to talk about it, but we have some amazing weapons. That was an amazing attack.
We have weapons that nobody knows about. Probably shouldn't talk about them. So he's actually saying there that we use some secret weapons and we have other secret weapons that nobody knows about on top of that as well. So not only does he confirm the directed energy weapons, but he's saying we got even crazier stuff than that. So, I mean, it's pretty much a head nod to at least the type of technology that we see with the MH370 videos, if not exactly that. Timothy Foster, I also saw your super chats in the comments. Thank you very much, brother, for those super donations. DEWs are old. Fact. Hey, world's starting to get out to the public now regarding DJT and TAE merger. Yeah. And I can see it's super volatile, the stock. Oh, it went way up today to 15.3. Almost 50. Yeah, almost 15.5. So people are going to catch on to the DJT thing. And that's why I said it was smart to get in early. Because what's happening is there's a bunch of people that are short selling DJT because A, they don't think the aneutronic fusion is real, and they also hate Trump. It's kind of like what happened with Tesla and Elon Musk. So I think this is, I mean, I'm happy. I love having my money there because we're looking at it. And another thing David Kirkley said that was not in the replies, what have you, is that there's a few different kinds of fusion companies. And I hope I'm getting this right. There are fusion companies that have a reactor and they have a theory. There are fusion companies that have a theory and they don't have a reactor. And then there's the fusion companies that don't have a theory and don't have a reactor. We, if you're at least with me, riding with me, with TAE and DJT, we've got a fusion reactor and we've got a theory. Those are the ones. And this is where when people ask me, and I love this because people are going to ask me, which fusion companies do I want to invest in and why? You want to invest in the ones that have a reactor and they have a theory. And you want to invest in one that has a theory that you believe in. Because right now, from the public perspective, fusion has not happened. And there must be some missing element that people haven't quite figured out yet. And so for me, field reverse configuration, aneutronic fusion, that's the one. No doubt. Because we've researched the science and we know that you can, at a bare minimum, make a Jarvis orb that can fly around and use it as propulsion, which is not a very big stretch to think how you could convert that into a unlimited energy reactor. So thank you very much, Timothy Foster. I appreciate it. Carrie, a neutronic pilot. We've got Carrie Ethernet subscriber and Carrie Ethernet and a neutronic pilot. I love it. Says, I'm not a Starfleet fan, so glad DJT is building the Death Star in Greenland. Oh my God. I can't believe you reminded me of this. The new Star Trek show. Star Trek used to be about warp drives and replicators and having sex with weird aliens and shit. And now it's about talking about your pronouns and your feelings and just like being randomly naked. I don't know what has happened to society. We are no longer a society. Whatever they did to Star Trek, I don't know if I want to live in this world anymore. I don't know if I want to just orb everybody involved in making that Star Trek, orb them all to Diego Garcia, put them in one of the underground prisons, and just throw away the key. Just throw away the key. In fact, I'm just going to get angry if I keep thinking about it. So let's focus on, yes, perhaps we're making a Death Star. No, I mean, if we're being practical, what are we doing with Greenland? What are we doing in Greenland? We're using it as an early warning zone. Greenland is basically part of our net. Greenland is basically what we would call the Black Shield, right? You guys see South Park? They take all the black people and they use them as the Black Shield, and then they all decide to let all the white people die. We're basically using Greenland as our Black Shield. Poor Greenlanders, you're fine. You go there and you absorb the missiles before they get to America. That's basically what Greenland is for us. Now, the good news for Greenland is we have directed energy weapons that can go faster than light. So you're pretty safe no matter where you are under the Golden Dome. But yeah, that's the reason why we want Greenland for sure. And yeah, sure, rare earth minerals. Yeah, that's a bonus. That's a bonus. But what we really want is just more territory so that we can expand our Golden Dome around the planet. I mean, our Golden Dome is going to be like half the planet, chat. It's going to be like half the planet. It's going to be sick. Mick Leonard, 2 years ago, I was watching Bearden videos at 2 a.m. Now I see a different universe. Me too, brother. Remember when we used to watch those old Bearden videos and we like didn't know anything about physics and we were just going, this dude seems like he knows what he's talking about. And he's saying, he's saying crazy stuff. Now we're watching and we're going, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. Now we're watching and we're going, okay, we understand the secret sauce. We know Bearden knew the secret sauce. There it is. In fact, I like tonight's live stream because it really connects that old early research we did when we knew basically nothing to now, today, 2026, confirm that directed energy weapons are real. The military has them. And now we're on the cutting edge going, here's the physics that makes that possible. Here you go. Have a little bit. Crossing the Goy streams. Someone's going to have to, I'm going to have to Google that later, figure out what the Goys are. Are the Goys the Jews or are the Goys the non-Jews? I don't know. Who cares, honestly. Bar T Welding, the ground state of the hydrogen atom, Hal Puthoff. How insane is it? I can't wait to tell the younger generation the legend of Hal Puthoff. I'm going to be able to say that Hal Puthoff passed me his ground state of the hydrogen atom paper. It's going to be a Netflix movie. You're going to have Joseph Levitt playing Ashton Forbes. You're going to have an old Tom Cruise playing an aging Hal Puthoff in his 90s. Pass Ashton the ground state of the hydrogen atom paper. See if he can figure it out. See if he can understand why it matters. Boom. Passed it to him. The owl. The owl. It's an Attack on Titan. So, but yes, true story. That the ground state of the hydrogen atom paper, after I started talking about Hal Puthoff's gravity as a 0-point fluctuation force, Hal Puthoff must have been watching, because suddenly this paper came to me, ground state of the hydrogen atom, said, somebody wants you to read this. And I read it, and I understood that what he was trying to imply is there's some extra energy source feeding the hydrogen atom. And to me at the time, that was a mind-blowing thought. Like, what? How? If this is true, why is nobody saying this? And now we find out all these hydrogen experiments are seeing anomalous excess energy. Maybe that's why. The ground state of the hydrogen atom. Pons and Fleischmann, OG, triple. I heard that Stanley Pons is still alive. I hope that Pons lives long enough to see his work be vindicated. He deserves it. So, like, I know exactly how he feels, because I've got people making videos with hundreds of thousands of views talking about how I'm a grifting fraud and shit like that. So I know how Stanley Pons feels to have people say that you're a liar, a fraud, when you're not. So he deserves his vindication. Zapparoo, huge donation. All your time and research is appreciated. The reasons others don't cover this comes down to one thing: fear. It really comes down to fear, and I think a lot of people don't want to admit that they're afraid, because the pressure to conform, the peer pressure for conformity is very powerful, as we found from the Ash conformity experiment. And that's why it's so powerful that we speak up against it. Just like I was maybe the first person to speak up against Candace Owens. And then all of a sudden the floodgates open up. So please, for the younger people out there, and this doesn't mean to go be obnoxious. It just means when you know something is right, don't be afraid to say your opinion, even if you know everybody's going to hammer you for it. At a minimum, you'll learn something. Last super chat. I I think it's Stephen Fleischer, if I'm correct. Ashton, you're revealing hidden science to the world and nobody has the brains to listen. In time, you'll soak up the overdue glory. And I don't care about the glory. The reality of how this will play out is that I'm probably going to burn and hate on the people that were ignoring it. And then when the time comes and it is time for the glory time, I'm probably not even going to care at that point. And I know that's probably how it'll play out either, because I'm not a person that cares about praise or glory in general. In fact, I generally don't like it. Get kind of awkward around it. But what I do care about is humanity getting this technology, because we deserve it and we built it and we paid for it. And I care about the families getting the truth about MH370. So until the United States government admits they orbed that plane with those plasma balls and they teleported it, yes, they did. Until they admit that, I am going to keep revealing every single secret that they have. All their technology, all their weapons, all their surveillance systems, all of it. Anything I find, I'm going to reveal it. Thank you, MH370X. I hope you have a great Friday. I will not be doing a live stream on Monday. I have to go travel for work, so we'll try to figure out something else. Have a great night, guys. Peace out. Later, everybody. Boom.
Out in the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow.
Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeezed so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism plates so fine, spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crump shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos, our future's here.